My name is Sarah. I'm 48 years old and the proud mother of my incredible 19-year-old daughter, Emily. Cooking has been her passion since she could barely reach the kitchen counter. Last month, she planned an elaborate surprise birthday dinner for my mother, spending 3 full days preparing a feast for 18 family members. The sparkle in her eyes as she cooked was matched only by the devastation when everyone started canceling at the last minute. Before I tell you how my daughter's heartbreak turned into something beautiful, let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've ever put your heart into something only to have it shattered. Emily and I have always shared a special bond. From the moment she could stand on a step stool in the kitchen, she was fascinated by everything I did at the stove. I remember her tiny hands trying to whisk eggs when she was just 4 years old. The determination on her face as she concentrated with all her might. By 6, she had mastered scrambled eggs. By 8, she was making pancakes from scratch on weekend mornings, while I sipped my coffee and marveled at her growing skills. My mother, Jean, played a huge role in nurturing Emily's culinary passion. During summer breaks, Emily would spend weeks at her grandmother's house, learning family recipes that had been passed down for generations. My mother taught her how to make the perfect pie crust, the secret to fluffy dinner rolls, and how to season a cast-iron skillet properly. Those summers created an unbreakable bond between them, with food as their love language. As Emily grew older, her skills advanced dramatically. What started with simple cookies and basic pasta dishes evolved into complex soufflés, perfectly seared steaks, and delicate French pastries. By the time she was in high school, she was experimenting with molecular gastronomy and plating techniques she'd learned from watching cooking shows. Her Instagram page filled with stunning food photography, each dish more impressive than the last. My mother's 70th birthday was approaching, and we all wanted to make it special. Jean had been through a difficult year, dealing with some health issues and the loss of her sister. A milestone birthday seemed like the perfect opportunity to bring some joy back into her life and gather the family to celebrate her. Initially, we had planned to host the celebration at an upscale restaurant in town, but as we calculated the cost for 18 people, it quickly became apparent that it was beyond our budget. That's when Emily stepped forward with her proposal. "Mom, what if I cook for everyone? I can make Grandma's favorite dishes, but with my own special twist. It would be more personal than a restaurant anyway." I'll admit, I was concerned. Cooking for 18 people isn't like making dinner for our family of 3. The logistics alone seemed overwhelming. The shopping, the preparation, the timing of multiple dishes, not to mention the expense of the ingredients. Emily was working part-time at a local bakery while taking college classes, and I worried about her taking on such a massive project. "Are you sure, honey? That's a lot of work for one person," I cautioned. Emily's face lit up with that determined look I've known since she was little. "I'm positive. This is what I love doing, and Grandma deserves something special. Plus, it'll be good practice for culinary school applications." Over the next week, Emily threw herself into planning. Our dining room table disappeared under notebooks, cookbooks, and printed recipes. She created spreadsheets for shopping lists, preparation timelines, and cooking schedules. Every detail was meticulously planned, from appetizers to desserts, with consideration for everyone's dietary preferences and restrictions. She knew Uncle Mark's wife was lactose intolerant, that Cousin Jake was allergic to shellfish, and that Aunt Diane's kids were notoriously picky eaters. The menu she designed was ambitious but thoughtful. For appetizers, miniature crab cakes, with lemon aioli, with a separate batch of vegetable fritters for Jake, goat cheese stuffed mushrooms, and a charcuterie board with homemade crackers and pickles. The main course would feature herb-roasted prime rib, maple-glazed salmon, scalloped potatoes, roasted seasonal vegetables, and fresh-baked dinner rolls. For dessert, a 3-layer lemon cake with vanilla buttercream, my mother's favorite, chocolate mousse, and fresh fruit tarts. As I watched Emily work, I couldn't help but feel overwhelming pride. My teenager was taking on a challenge that would intimidate professional chefs, and she was doing it with confidence and joy. When she handed me the final shopping list, my eyes widened at its length, but I didn't discourage her. This was her gift to her grandmother, and I would support her however I could. 3 days before the big dinner, Emily began her culinary marathon. The night before, she could barely sleep, going over her schedule repeatedly, making sure nothing was overlooked. "Tomorrow we start, Mom," she said, eyes bright with excitement. "It's going to be amazing." I believed her. What I didn't realize was how the family would respond to her efforts. Day 1 of cooking began at 6 in the morning. Emily was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing the professional chef's apron she'd received for Christmas. She had music playing softly and was organizing ingredients on the counter with the precision of a surgeon preparing for an operation. "Morning, Mom," she greeted me, barely looking up from her checklist. "We need to hit the farmer's market by 7 to get the freshest produce. Then we need to stop at Goldstein's butcher for the prime rib. Mr. Goldstein is holding a special cut for me." I quickly got ready, and we headed out for our shopping expedition. The farmer's market was just opening as we arrived, and Emily moved from stall to stall with purpose, carefully selecting the perfect vegetables and fruits. She chatted with the farmers, asking about the sweetness of the carrots, the freshness of the herbs, and the ripeness of the berries. Many knew her by name, greeting her warmly and offering their best products. "These tomatoes were just picked yesterday, Emily," said Mrs. Rodriguez, handing her a bag of vibrant heirlooms. "Perfect for that gazpacho you mentioned." At Goldstein's butcher, Mr. Goldstein himself came out to show Emily the prime rib he had selected. "Only the best for my favorite young chef," he said, wrapping the expensive cut with care. "You tell your grandmother happy birthday from me." We made 2 more stops, a specialty food store for some unique ingredients and our regular grocery for staples. By the time we returned home, the car was packed with bags, and Emily was buzzing with energy, eager to begin. Our kitchen, while comfortable for everyday cooking, wasn't designed for preparing a feast of this magnitude. Emily quickly transformed the space, creating distinct stations for different tasks. The island became prep central, the counter near the sink was for cleaning produce, and the dining table was designated for cooling and assembly. She commandeered every mixing bowl, measuring cup, and utensil we owned. "Mom, can you wash and chop those vegetables while I start the stocks? Everything needs to be uniform, about 1/2-inch pieces," she instructed, already heating pots on the stove. I became her sous chef, following directions and watching in amazement as she multitasked with ease. She started chicken stock for the soup, began reducing wine for a sauce, and prepared dough for the dinner rolls and pie crusts, all seemingly simultaneously. When we ran out of counter space, Emily improvised, setting up a folding table in the living room. When we discovered we didn't have enough storage containers for all the prepped ingredients, she organized a system using labeled Ziploc bags. Every challenge was met with a creative solution. By mid-afternoon, the house was filled with incredible aromas. Emily had prepared the stocks, sauces, and dressings that would form the foundation of many dishes. The dinner rolls were shaped and refrigerated for slow proofing. Pie crusts were chilling, vegetables were prepped, and marinades were ready for the proteins. As we worked, I noticed my phone buzzing with messages. My brother Mark asking if store-bought wine would be acceptable instead of the nice bottles I'd requested. My sister Diane wondering if she could bring her kid's friend along last minute, despite our tight seating arrangements. Little hints that perhaps they weren't taking this event as seriously as Emily was. "Has everyone confirmed they're coming?" Emily asked, looking up from the pastry cream she was stirring. I hesitated, then forced a smile. "Most of them. You know how family is with RSVPs. Don't worry, they'll be here." Emily nodded, returning to her work. "I'm making sure everything is perfect. Uncle Mark loves his meat medium rare, so I'll make sure one end of the roast is a little more done for Aunt Julie, who likes it medium. And I'm doing a separate batch of mac and cheese for the kids, with the breadcrumb topping on the side since Diane's youngest doesn't like crunchy things. The thoughtfulness of these details made my heart ache. Emily wasn't just cooking food. She was creating an experience tailored to each family member. I sent another group text reminding everyone of the time and address, emphasizing how hard Emily was working to make this special. The responses trickled in, non-committal and vague. Should be able to make it. Planning on it unless something comes up. What time again? By evening, Emily was exhausted but satisfied with the day's progress. Her checklist had dozens of items crossed off, though many remained for the next 2 days. As she finally sat down to eat a quick sandwich, her first real meal of the day, she scrolled through photos on her phone. "Look at these pictures from Grandma's 65th birthday," she said, showing me images of my mother surrounded by family, beaming with joy. "That's what I want for her this weekend. All of us together, enjoying good food, making her feel special." I squeezed her shoulder, pushing away my growing unease about the family's lukewarm responses. "You're making it happen, sweetheart. Get some rest now. Tomorrow's another big day." As Emily headed up to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, surveying the evidence of her labor, the neatly labeled containers, the detailed notes for tomorrow, the specialized ingredients that had cost her nearly 2 weeks' worth of paychecks. From her part-time job, I couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing, but I pushed it aside. Surely my family wouldn't let us down. Not with so much at stake. Day 2 dawned early again, with Emily already working by the time I joined her. Today's tasks were even more intensive, preparing components that required longer cooking times or needed to be made ahead to develop flavors. I started the beef bourguignon for the appetizer tarts, she explained, stirring a pot of fragrant stew. "It needs to simmer for hours, then cool overnight so I can remove the fat and fill the tarts tomorrow." Her hands moved with confidence as she worked, but I noticed the slight tremor of fatigue. She'd been up since 4, determined to stay on schedule. The kitchen counters now held even more labeled containers: cookie dough resting, compound butter setting, marinades steeping. The financial investment was becoming increasingly apparent. Beyond our initial shopping, Emily had made 3 additional runs for forgotten items and specialty ingredients. When I glimpsed her totaling receipts during a brief break, I was stunned by the figure. She had spent almost $800, a fortune for a college student working part-time at a bakery. "Emily, I had no idea you were spending this much," I said gently. "Let me help with the cost." She shook her head firmly. "This is my gift to Grandma. I've been saving up. Besides, everyone will help cover ingredients when they come." I mentioned it in the invitations. I bit my tongue, knowing that expecting reimbursement from my siblings was optimistic at best. My brother Mark, despite his successful law practice, was notoriously frugal when it came to family events. My sister Diane always seemed to be between jobs, with money perpetually tight due to her expensive tastes. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was my mother, excited about the family gathering but completely unaware of the extent of Emily's efforts. We had told her only that we were hosting a family dinner, keeping the elaborate meal a surprise. "I can't wait to see everyone," she said happily. "It's been too long since we all got together." After I hung up, Emily asked, "Did Grandma sound excited?" "Very," I assured her, not mentioning that my mother had also told me that my sister had called her complaining about the timing of the dinner, saying it conflicted with her son's soccer practice. As the day progressed, more concerning signals came from the family. My phone buzzed with a message from Mark. "Seems like a lot of trouble. Wouldn't it have been easier to just go to a restaurant? Julie's not sure about driving across town with gas prices so high." I stared at the screen in disbelief. My brother lived in a 5-bedroom house and drove a luxury SUV, but was complaining about gas for a 20-minute drive to celebrate our mother's 70th birthday. Shortly after, Diane called. Sarah, I know we RSVP'd, yes, but I just realized Tyler has a soccer tournament that day. Any chance we could reschedule? Reschedule? I repeated, stepping into the hallway so Emily wouldn't hear. Diane, this is Mom's birthday, the actual day, and Emily has been cooking for days. Everything is planned and prepared. Well, can't we just do it the next weekend? Or even just a few hours later? The tournament should be done by 6. I took a deep breath. The dinner is at 4. We chose that time specifically because Mom doesn't like driving after dark. Everyone agreed to this date weeks ago. Fine, Diane sighed dramatically. We'll try to make it work, but don't be surprised if we're late or need to leave early. I ended the call feeling a knot form in my stomach. Returning to the kitchen, I found Emily painstakingly making chocolate decorations for the desserts, her face a mask of concentration. There was a small burn on her wrist that hadn't been there earlier, and her shoulders were hunched with tension. How's it going? I asked, trying to sound upbeat. Good, but I'm a little behind schedule, she admitted. The beef is taking longer to tenderize than I expected, and I had to restart the chocolate work twice to get it right. I rolled up my sleeves. Tell me how I can help. For the next several hours, we worked side by side. Emily had been on her feet for nearly 12 hours, yet she refused to take more than brief sitting breaks. Her hands were developing calluses from the knife work, and I noticed her wincing as she lifted heavy pots. By midnight, we had managed to catch up to her schedule, but the physical toll was evident. As Emily finally prepared to get some sleep, she checked her phone for the first time in hours. No responses to my confirmation text, she said, frowning at the screen. I just wanted to make sure everyone's still coming and if there are any last-minute dietary concerns. I'm sure they're just busy, I said, hating the lie. Get some rest now. Tomorrow's the big day. After Emily went upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through unanswered messages I'd sent to my siblings. The lack of consideration was infuriating. Did they have any idea what their niece was doing for our mother? For all of us? I tried calling Mark, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent one more group text. Emily has been working nonstop for days to prepare an amazing meal for Mom's birthday. Please confirm you'll be here tomorrow at 4 p.m. sharp. Then I went to bed, lying awake for hours, a sense of dread growing inside me. Something told me tomorrow would not go as Emily had so carefully planned. The final day of preparation began in a flurry of activity. Emily was in the kitchen by 5, looking tired but determined, her checklist clutched in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. Today's timeline is tight, she explained, pointing to her schedule. The prime rib needs to go in by noon. The rolls need to be baked by 3. Final plating and table setting needs to be done by 3:30. Our house was transformed by the aromas of roasting meat, baking bread, and simmering sauces. Every surface in the kitchen was in use, and Emily moved between tasks with practiced efficiency, though I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. By early afternoon, the dining room began taking shape as well. Emily had created a stunning tablescape with a color scheme of cream and gold. She'd polished my grandmother's antique silver, arranged fresh flowers as a centerpiece, and even made personalized place cards with each guest's name written in elegant calligraphy. I want everyone to feel special, she explained, carefully positioning the place cards. I researched proper formal table settings online. The water glasses go here, wine glasses here. The attention to detail was remarkable. She had made individual menus, printed on cream cardstock, listing each course. She'd even prepared a separate children's menu for my sister's kids and my brother's teenagers, knowing their simpler tastes. At 1:30, with everything progressing, on schedule, my phone rang. It was Mark. Hey sis, bad news. Ethan's come down with something? Fever, stomachache? We don't think we're going to make it today. My heart sank. Mark, are you sure? Emily has been cooking for 3 days straight. There's a place set for each of you. Can't risk getting everyone sick, he said quickly. Julie's worried it might. Be that stomach bug going around. Send Mom our love, okay? I glanced toward the kitchen where Emily was glazing the salmon. Can you at least video call during dinner? It would mean a lot to Mom. And Emily. We'll try, he said, in a tone that suggested they wouldn't. Gotta go check on Ethan. I barely had time to process this when my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Rachel. So sorry. Something's come up at work. Can't make it today after all. As if a dam had broken, the cancellations began flooding in. My aunt and uncle, car troubles, my other cousin, unexpected company from out of town. Each excuse seemed more flimsy than the last. I stood in the hallway, trying to keep my voice down as I called Diane. Please tell me you're still coming, I said when she answered. About that, she began, and my heart sank. We just got offered tickets to the Symphony in the Park event. It's a really exclusive thing, Sarah. The kids are so excited. More excited than their grandmother's 70th birthday? I asked incredulously. Mom will have other birthdays, Diane said dismissively. This opportunity won't come around again. I'm sure she'll understand. And what about Emily? She's been cooking for 3 days. She's spent hundreds of dollars on food. There was a pause. That was her choice, wasn't it? Seems a bit excessive for a family dinner. I was speechless with anger. Before I could respond, Diane added, Oh, and since we're not coming, I won't be able to pick up Mom. Can you get her? You were supposed to drive her here, I said, my voice tight. She's been looking forward to this for weeks. Just call her an Uber or something, Diane suggested. Gotta run. The call ended and I stood there, phone in hand, utterly devastated for my daughter. How was I going to tell her? In the kitchen, Emily was checking the prime rib, her face flushed from the heat of the oven. Perfect temperature, she said proudly. It's going to be so tender. I forced a smile, not ready to break the news. My phone rang again. It was my mother. Sarah, dear, I hate to do this, but I don't think I'll be able to make it today. Diane was supposed to drive me, but she just called to say they can't come. My arthritis is acting up, and I don't think I should drive myself. I can come get you, Mom, I said quickly. Oh, honey, it's a 40-minute drive each way. By the time you got here and we got back, dinner would be cold. Let's just reschedule for another time, okay? Tell Emily I'm sorry to miss her cooking. The call ended, and I felt tears prick my eyes. Emily's special surprise for her grandmother, the guest of honor, wouldn't even be there to enjoy it. At exactly 4 o'clock, the time when 18 family members should have been arriving, our doorbell remained silent. The table was set perfectly, candles ready to be lit, wine uncorked to breathe. The kitchen counters were lined with appetizers, the warming drawers filled with perfectly timed dishes, the refrigerator stocked with chilled desserts. Emily stood by the window, phone in hand, checking messages repeatedly. With each passing minute, her shoulders drooped a little more. Maybe they're just running late, she suggested, her voice small. I couldn't keep the truth from her any longer. Gently, I explained about the cascade of cancellations, trying to soften the blow, but knowing there was no way to make this better. Emily listened in silence, her expression changing from confusion to hurt to devastation. When I told her that even her grandmother wouldn't be coming, a single tear slid down her cheek. Everyone? She whispered. No one is coming at all? I nodded, my own eyes filling with tears. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. The dining room stood in perfect, pristine readiness. 18 place settings, 18 empty chairs. The candles remained unlit, the wine undrunk, the beautiful food, 3 days of painstaking work, uneaten. Emily walked slowly into the kitchen, surveying the feast she had created, the prime rib resting under foil, the salmon glistening with glaze, the sides keeping warm, the appetizers artfully arranged on platters. All this food, she said, her voice breaking. All this work. For nothing. She picked up a platter of appetizers, and for a moment, I thought she might throw it against the wall. Instead, She set it down carefully and covered her face with her hands. "I just want to throw it all away," she sobbed. "I feel so stupid. So embarrassed. I tried so hard to make everything perfect." I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her body shake with sobs. My fierce, determined daughter who had worked herself to exhaustion for people who couldn't be bothered to show up. My anger at my family was overshadowed only by the pain of seeing Emily so crushed. "I'm going to my room," she said finally, wiping her eyes. "I can't look at all this food anymore." As she turned to leave, I knew I had to do something. This couldn't be how her story ended. This couldn't be what she remembered about putting her heart into something. "Wait!" I called as Emily reached the stairs. "We're not throwing this food away, and we're not just giving up." Emily turned, her eyes red and puffy. "What's the point, Mom? No one cared enough to come." "That's exactly it," I said, an idea forming. "This food is too special to go to waste. Too much heart went into it. If our family doesn't appreciate it, we'll find people who will." I grabbed my phone and did a quick search, then dialed a number. After a brief conversation, I turned back to Emily with the first genuine smile I'd had all day. "The Pine Street shelter has 60 residents tonight, and their cook called in sick. They were planning to serve donated pizza, but I just offered them a gourmet meal instead. They're thrilled and can accept the donation if we can get it there within the hour." Emily stared at me, uncertainty written across her face. "The homeless shelter? You want to take all this food to a homeless shelter?" "Why not?" I asked. "Your cooking deserves to be appreciated, and everyone deserves a good meal." Emily hesitated, embarrassment and disappointment still clouding her judgment. "I don't know, Mom. This was supposed to be special for Grandma and the family." I sat beside her on the stairs and took her hand. "Let me tell you something I've never shared before. When I was about your age, I spent months preparing for a dance recital. I practiced every day, saved up for the perfect costume, even lost 10 pounds to fit the image I thought I needed to project. The night of the performance, my date stood me up, and only your grandmother came to watch. I was devastated." Emily watched me, listening intently. "I wanted to quit dancing altogether, but your grandmother convinced me to volunteer teaching, dance at the community center instead. Those kids couldn't have cared less about my perfect arabesque, but they loved learning from me. It changed everything about how I saw my talent, not as something to impress others, but as something to share and bring joy." Emily was quiet for a long moment. "But all this food? It would take forever to pack up and transport." "Then we better get started," I said, standing up. "I'm not letting your hard work go to waste. Are you with me?" Slowly, Emily nodded. "Okay, let's do it." We spent the next 30 minutes in a flurry of activity, finding every storage container we owned and improvising with foil pans and plastic wrap for the rest. We carefully packed the prime rib, salmon, and sides, making sure everything would transport safely. The appetizers were arranged on disposable platters, the desserts carefully boxed. Loading the car took 3 trips, with barely enough room for us among all the food containers. The drive to Pine Street shelter was silent, Emily still processing her disappointment while also wondering what awaited us. The shelter was located in a converted school building downtown. As we pulled up, a staff member named James came out to meet us, his eyes widening at the sight of all the food. "When you called, I didn't realize you meant a full gourmet meal," he said, helping us unload. "This is incredible." Inside, the shelter's dining room was simple but clean, with long tables set up cafeteria style. A few residents were already gathering, curious about the commotion at the entrance. The standard institutional dinner they had expected was being replaced by something very different. Emily stood awkwardly as James and another staff member helped bring in the food. I could see her discomfort, the feeling of being out of place. This wasn't the elegant birthday dinner she had envisioned serving today. "Where should we set everything up?" I asked James. "We have a serving counter over here," he explained, leading us to a kitchen area. Usually we just have one or two options, but this— he gestured at the array of dishes we had brought. We'll need to figure out how to serve all these courses. Emily, despite her reluctance, couldn't help noticing the improper setup. Her organizational instincts kicked in. The appetizers should go first, then the main courses and sides, she said quietly. The desserts should be set up separately. James nodded appreciatively. Would you mind showing us how to arrange everything? We want to do your food justice. With gentle encouragement, Emily began directing the setup, explaining which sauces went with which dishes, how the food should be arranged. As she worked, her professional demeanor slowly returned, her focus shifting from her disappointment to the task at hand. The residents began lining up, the news of a special meal having spread quickly through the shelter. The first few approached the serving counter with curious expressions, clearly surprised by the gourmet offerings. "What's this one?" asked an older man, pointing to the beef bourguignon tarts. Emily hesitated, then explained, "It's beef slow, cooked in red wine with mushrooms and herbs, in a pastry shell." The man's eyes lit up. "Fancy. I haven't had anything like that in years." As more residents came through the line, their reactions ranged from polite gratitude to outright amazement. Many had never tried dishes like scalloped potatoes with Gruyere or roasted vegetables with balsamic reduction. "Did you really make all this?" asked a young woman with a small child. "It's like restaurant food." Emily nodded, a small, hesitant smile beginning to form as she served a portion of prime rib. "It's medium rare in the center, more well done on the ends," she explained. "Which would you prefer?" "I haven't had a choice in what I eat for months," the woman said softly. "Medium rare sounds wonderful." Among the residents was an elderly woman who reminded me instantly of my mother. Similar silver hair, similar gentle demeanor. She approached Emily with a warm smile. "You're the chef?" she asked, looking at the beautiful food with appreciation. "My goodness, what a treat for us today." "I'm not really a chef," Emily said. "I just cook for fun." "Nonsense," the woman replied. "Anyone who creates food with this much care is a chef in my book. I'm Margaret, by the way." "Emily, my daughter," replied, serving Margaret a portion of salmon. "The maple glaze has a little bit of ginger in it." "Perfect," Margaret said, inhaling the aroma. "I used to love cooking with ginger. Brightens everything up." As the residents found seats and began eating, the atmosphere in the dining room transformed. What might have been a routine, forgettable meal became an event. People were talking, complimenting the food, asking questions about ingredients. The institutional setting faded into the background as the experience of sharing exceptional food took center stage. Emily, initially just going through the motions, began to engage more with the residents as they expressed genuine appreciation for her cooking. With each compliment, each look of surprise and delight, the cloud of disappointment surrounding her lifted slightly. By the time we began serving dessert, she was actually smiling, explaining to an interested group how she had created the chocolate decorations for the mousse. I stood back, watching my daughter find her footing in this unexpected situation. The food that had been rejected by our family was bringing genuine joy to people who had few luxuries in life. As one resident put it, "For tonight, we're dining like royalty." In that moment, I realized that perhaps this was exactly where Emily's cooking was meant to be served today, not at an unappreciated family obligation, but at a table where every bite was valued, where her hard work was truly seen. As the dinner service continued, Margaret, the elderly woman who had spoken to Emily earlier, approached us again. This time, she had specific questions about the sauce on the prime rib. "The depth of flavor is remarkable," she said. "Did you use veal stock as a base?" Emily looked surprised. "Yes, actually. How did you know?" Margaret smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. "I recognized the technique. I was a chef for 30 years before life took some unexpected turns." Emily's interest was immediately piqued. "You were a professional chef? Where did you work?" "I had my own restaurant in New Orleans," Margaret explained. "Le Jardin. It was quite successful for a long time." "What happened?" I asked gently. Margaret's expression grew somber. Hurricane Katrina took the restaurant. Insurance battles, health issues, and a divorce took everything else. At 72, starting over isn't easy. Emily listened with rapt attention as Margaret shared stories of her culinary career, studying in France in the 1970s, the challenges of being a female chef in a male-dominated industry, signature dishes that had earned her critical acclaim. "Your prime rib technique is textbook perfect," Margaret noted. "The way you rendered the fat cap but kept the meat juicy, that takes practice." Emily beamed at the professional validation. "I've been working on my temperature control. It's hard. In a home oven that runs hot in some spots. Try putting a pizza stone on the rack below your roasting pan," Margaret suggested. "It helps regulate the heat." Soon, they were deep in conversation about cooking techniques, swapping tips and tricks of the trade. I watched in amazement as Emily's entire demeanor changed. The devastation of earlier had been replaced by engagement and enthusiasm as she connected with someone who truly understood and appreciated her passion. Other residents joined the conversation, sharing their own food memories and experiences. A man named Robert had worked as a sous chef before addiction had derailed his career. A woman named Tanya had learned traditional Caribbean cooking from her grandmother and offered Emily tips on spice combinations. The shelter director, James, approached me as I watched these interactions unfold. "This is incredible," he said. "I've never seen some of these folks so animated. Food brings people together, but this is something special." "My daughter put her heart into this meal," I explained. "It was supposed to be for her grandmother's 70th birthday, but the family all canceled at the last minute." James shook his head. "Their loss is definitely our gain. You know, we've been wanting to start a cooking program here. Many of our residents need job skills, and food service is an industry with lots of opportunities. But we haven't found the right person to teach it." I glanced over at Emily, now demonstrating a knife technique to an interested group. "That's an interesting idea." My phone had been buzzing throughout the evening, messages from family members asking how the dinner went, as if they hadn't all abandoned us. I had ignored them, choosing instead to be present in this unexpected experience. Now, I took a few photos of the residents enjoying Emily's food, their faces alight with pleasure, and sent them to the family group chat without explanation. The confused responses came quickly. "Where are you? Who are those people? That doesn't look like your house?" I put my phone away, deciding explanations could wait. This evening wasn't about them anymore. Across the room, I overheard Margaret saying to Emily, "You have a natural talent for balancing flavors. That lemon cake, the sweetness of the buttercream, against the tartness of the lemon curd filling, perfect harmony." Emily was soaking up the professional feedback, asking questions about culinary school, restaurant work, and career paths. For the first time all day, she seemed to have forgotten about the family's rejection, fully immersed in connection with people who shared her passion. As the evening progressed, we learned that one of the shelter residents, a man named David, was celebrating his birthday that same week. When Emily heard this, she disappeared into the kitchen, returning with the special cake topper she had made for my mother, delicate chocolate work spelling out "Happy Birthday," and placed it on one of the lemon cake slices. The impromptu birthday celebration that followed brought tears to my eyes. Residents and staff gathered around David, singing "Happy Birthday," while he stared at the gourmet cake slice in disbelief. "I haven't had a birthday cake in 8 years," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Emily stood watching, her own eyes glistening. In that moment, I could see her perspective shifting, understanding that her food had found its way exactly where it needed to be. As the evening wound down and we prepared to leave, Residents came up to thank Emily personally. Many wanted to know if she would return, if she might teach them some cooking basics. Margaret gave Emily her phone number, offering mentorship and connection to culinary contacts she still maintained. "Don't let setbacks diminish your passion," she told Emily. "Cooking is about nourishing people, body and soul. You did that tonight, regardless of who was sitting at the table." The drive home was quiet, but different from the heavy silence of our drive to the shelter. This was a contemplative quiet, both of us processing the unexpected turns the day had taken. "Are you okay?" I asked Emily as we neared home. She gazed out the window for a long moment before responding. "I think I am. It wasn't what I planned. It wasn't for who I planned. But it mattered to those people. They really saw the work I put in." I reached over and squeezed her hand, my heart full with pride for my remarkable daughter, who had turned heartbreak into something beautiful. The morning after our shelter dinner, I expected Emily to sleep late, exhausted from 3 days of cooking and the emotional roller coaster she'd experienced. To my surprise, she was up early, sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook, writing intently. "Morning, honey," I said cautiously, unsure of her mood. "How are you feeling today?" She looked up with clear eyes and a calm expression I hadn't expected. "I'm good, Mom. Really good, actually. I'm making some notes about yesterday. Things Margaret taught me, ideas for dishes I want to try." Her resilience amazed me. Where was the devastation of yesterday? The humiliation of being rejected by our entire family? My phone had accumulated dozens of messages overnight. After seeing the photos I'd sent, family members were confused and increasingly demanding explanations. I scrolled through them while making coffee. "Sarah, what's going on? Who were those people? Did you give Mom's birthday dinner to strangers? Why didn't you tell us you were canceling the family dinner?" With Emily's permission, I finally responded with a single group message, attaching more photos from the shelter dinner. "Since none of you could make it to Mom's birthday dinner, that Emily spent 3 days preparing, we took all the food to Pine Street Shelter. The residents there were incredibly appreciative of her cooking. Just thought you should see where your dinners went." The responses came quickly, a mix of guilt, defensive justifications, and awkward attempts to save face. I showed them to Emily, who surprised me with her reaction. "They missed out," she said simply. "I'm not angry anymore. Disappointed, yes, but also grateful, in a weird way." "Grateful?" I asked, puzzled. If they had shown up, I never would have met Margaret. I never would have seen how food can really impact people who truly appreciate it. Later that morning, my mother called, her voice small and apologetic after hearing what had happened. "I feel terrible, Sarah. I should have found a way to be there." "Yes, you should have," I agreed, not willing to let her off the hook entirely. "Emily worked so hard to make your birthday special." "I know," she said, genuine remorse in her voice. Would she be willing to talk to me?" I handed the phone to Emily, who took it with remarkable composure. "Hi, Grandma," she said. Then, after listening for a moment, "It's okay. I understand about your arthritis. Maybe we can do something smaller, just the 3 of us when you're feeling better." The maturity in her response brought tears to my eyes. There was no bitterness, no guilt trip, just honest acknowledgement and a path forward. After the call, Emily surprised me again. "I'm going to email the shelter director. He mentioned they wanted to start cooking classes for residents. I'm thinking I could volunteer once a month, teach some basic techniques." "Really?" I asked. "You want to go back?" Emily nodded. When I was explaining how to make the sauce to that group yesterday, something clicked. Seeing their interest, their appreciation, it felt right. And Margaret said she'd help too. Over the next few weeks, a remarkable transformation took place. Emily began volunteering at the shelter, teaching basic cooking skills to residents interested in food service careers. Margaret became a mentor and friend, sharing decades of professional knowledge and helping Emily refine her techniques. The relationship with our family took time to repair. My siblings' initial embarrassment eventually gave way to genuine apologies, though Emily maintained a healthy distance, no longer seeking their approval or validation for her talents. We did host a small dinner for my mother about a month later, just the three of us. Emily prepared a simplified version of the birthday meal, and my mother was properly appreciative, marveling at her granddaughter's skills and listening intently to stories about the shelter program. "I'm so proud of you," she told Emily. "Not just for your cooking, but for your heart. Taking disappointment and turning it into something positive. That's true strength." The shelter cooking program flourished under Emily's guidance. She started documenting the classes on a blog, sharing stories of the residents and their progress alongside recipes and techniques. The blog attracted attention from local media, and soon Emily was fielding inquiries from other community organizations interested in similar programs. "Food is more than just sustenance," she wrote in one popular post. "It's dignity, it's connection, it's showing someone they matter enough to receive your best efforts." 6 months after the birthday dinner disaster, Emily received a letter that changed everything. An offer of a partial scholarship to a prestigious culinary institute based partly on her volunteer work and the portfolio she had developed through her blog. "They want me to focus on community culinary education," she explained excitedly, "using cooking as a tool for empowerment and job training." As we celebrated this news, I reflected on how differently things might have turned out. If our family had shown up that day, Emily would have received compliments and appreciation, certainly. But would she have discovered this new path, this perfect alignment of her talents with meaningful purpose? The empty table set for 18 had seemed like a tragedy in the moment, yet it had led Emily to serve countless meals to those who truly needed them, to discover her calling, and to develop a resilience that would serve her throughout life. Sometimes the worst disappointments lead to unexpected blessings. Sometimes when people let you down, it creates space for something better to enter your life. And sometimes an empty table isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a different one. Have you ever experienced a disappointing situation that unexpectedly led to something positive in your life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If Emily's journey resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories of resilience and growth. And remember, sometimes the most beautiful destinations aren't on the map we originally planned to follow. Thank you for listening, and may you find purpose even in your disappointments.